The YouTube Kids app is supposed to be a platform where parents can have their young children watch wholesome content that will stimulate their developing minds. Unfortunately, however, much of this content on the app has been not the most family friendly, and in some cases downright disturbing, with possibly malicious intent. So today we'll delve deep into the dark side of children's entertainment on YouTube. Even if you didn't follow YouTube during the drama, you more than likely heard about the ElsaGate scandal when the story broke back in 2017. It made headlines across mainstream media outlets and was responsible for some of the site's biggest guideline shifts in recent memory. This all began when people started to notice very disturbing content being shown to children on the supposedly safe YouTube Kids app. These videos included popular characters such as those from Frozen doing not the most family-friendly things, hence the controversy's name, ElsaGate.
Some children's videos, I would argue most children's videos, are completely normal content like nursery rhymes, colors, counting. But there's also a huge subsection of videos that are very troubling. And the range here is, okay, that's kind of weird and kind of inappropriate, to what the f***? How is this in YouTube Kids?
Though the first channels in this style would be created shortly after the release of Disney's Frozen in 2013, the majority of them wouldn't appear until 2016 when they began flooding the site in the boom of the YouTube Kids app. Ranging in genres from live action to animation, these videos featured Elsa and other Disney princesses, along with superheroes such as Spider-Man, Hulk, and the Joker. These were all unofficial productions, and because of that, there were no limits of what disturbing things they had these popular characters doing. YouTube has never been a stranger to raunchy parodies of children's entertainment. In the early days of the site, there was an abundance of vulgar flash animations that satirized the exact same subject matter. So to those unfamiliar with the situation, at first glance it might seem odd in a way that ElsaGate incited such a massive controversy. Unlike previous trends, however, these channels were clearly producing as well as marketing their content to young children, specifically toddlers. By doing so, they amassed tens of millions of views on many of these videos almost daily. Why was this a problem? Because the videos being marketed to youngsters seemed purposely traumatizing. The things that they were depicting in this supposed children's entertainment was disgusting, and often downright extreme. The fact that their target audience was so young made these channels a lot more worrisome than simple raunchy teen-oriented spoofs of yesteryear. Don't believe me? Well, fine. Here are just a few of the common themes that people identified after watching through a number of these supposed kid channel videos. Murder, cannibalization, dismemberment, needle injections, drug use, pregnancy, abortion, urination, excretion, self-mutilation, partial nudity, and in general just overtly sexual imagery such as dry humping. All of this was being specifically shown to millions of kids and their developing brains across the world, as YouTube and the creators of the content made a profit. Some of this was so vile, I'm choosing not to show it in today's video. Add in an insane amount of oversaturation of this content and you get millions of children stuck in a feedback loop, watching this disturbing content for hours on end. Parents who thought it would be safe to leave their children alone on the YouTube Kids app began to share horror stories of finding their toddlers watching these videos due to YouTube's algorithm-based autoplay system. One of many parents shared their experience saying, "My daughter loves certain videos on YouTube, and we've unfortunately, through the autoplay feature, found ourselves in front of some of these questionable videos." Just imagine that. Finding out that your kid's been watching their favorite cartoon characters chopping off each other's fingers and doing other horrific acts for who knows how long. This issue wasn't even limited to just the United States. These videos were successful in almost every country across the earth because they didn't have any spoken dialogue, making them universal. This was a deliberate choice by the content creators to prevent language barriers and maximize their foreign audience. Because of this, these channels were at one point some of the fastest growing on the entire website, gaining millions of subscribers and billions of views. That's not an exaggeration either. Many of these deplorable videos gained tens of millions of clicks from impressionable young minds. With millions of children being spoon-fed perverted content by one of the biggest companies in the world, it wasn't long before parents became worried and the controversy began to erupt. But even after becoming aware of the situation, it took Google months to effectively crack down on the alarming content, with them only really getting involved after the mainstream media began to report on things, and it started to hurt their profits with advertisers pulling ads. While the creepy YouTube Kids videos have been massively undercut as a result of crackdowns by Google, the actual origins of this type of content are still largely undetermined. To this very day, it's still a mystery. Who were making these messed up videos and why were they promoting them to young children? This is where we enter the ElsaGate subreddit, a community dedicated solely to discussing theories and sharing discoveries regarding the subject amongst online armchair investigators. At the time, there were 4 main questions surrounding the ElsaGate controversy that we still don't know the answers to. But it's not for lack of trying. These questions were heavily investigated and pondered, but lack of evidence made it impossible to make any decisive conclusions. They were as follows. How did these videos get so many views? Why are there so many of them? Who is responsible for them? Why did they make them so disturbing? And the investigation began really with that first question. How did these videos get millions upon millions of views? This may not be common knowledge to those who only browse YouTube casually, but one way you can tell if a video has fake views generated by bots, if it has a disproportionate amount of likes and views compared to comments. It's been widely suggested that these channels' millions of views were likely purchased and or acquired through viewbotting. So they checked out the comment section, looking for a suspicious view to comment ratio. They instead found that it was proportional, but filled with incomprehensible jargon and gibberish. This revelation would go on to become one of the most mysterious aspects of ElsaGate due to how unpredictable the comments were. It only made the channels look even more suspicious, and many started to ask if these comments had any meaning behind them. Some asserted that many of these comments were actually in secret code being used amongst its creators, with multiple tests being done to translate this incomprehensible text into English. They speculated that there was some sort of encryption being used so creeps could send secret messages to one another in broad daylight. One popular way many discovered to decipher the messages was to run them through the popular substitution cipher ROT13. One example of this was when a Redditor ran a comment through it and was able to translate the message into, "I think he is a serial killer." This led many to believe that he stumbled upon a piece of someone's secret conversation. All this may sound really crazy and far-fetched to you, and I understand that, but things go even further. People also discover that some of these comments provided secret links to other YouTube videos. The poster would copy the ID of a popular video, which was a string of letters and numbers, then paste it into their comments so others could search it on Google and have the video appear. While this may sound a bit weird at first, there has been many clear-cut examples of it happening. In one case, a video ID was posted in the comments of a children's video. Then it was hearted by the video's uploader. If you search that code on Google, it will bring you to a video of a little girl twerking. It's hard to believe that this was a coincidence, since if you get one letter of the code wrong, the video won't appear. Plus it blends in with all the other nonsense being posted in the comments, making it even more secretive. So could there be truth to the idea that adults were creeping in the comments of these Elsa and Spider-Man videos with their own secret codes as a way to communicate with one another? That may not actually be as outlandish as it sounds. If you go through the threads on Reddit, you'll find plenty of people piecing together these alleged conversations, some of which including addresses and times for where they can meet up in real life with other like-minded creeps. It's clear some of these comments could have just been little kids writing gibberish or possibly some bots trying to inflate the numbers, but that doesn't negate the secret message theory. Common sense would say it's not rational for weirdos to have a conversation out in public like this, but maybe that was the appeal. While these perverted videos were labeled under the children category, there is a consensus that at the bare minimum, pedophiles were watching ElsaGate videos, if not outright running some of these accounts. Perhaps some of them got off to the idea of having messed up conversations right there in the view of the world without anyone even knowing it, having their own secret language and sharing other videos of children with their cohorts. The risk was part of the thrill to them. This leads to the next point, which is, what was the purpose of these videos? As I just mentioned, many think that actual pedophiles are the ones creating much of it, not only for their own twisted enjoyment, but also to manipulate kids. When the community-wide effort to investigate these channels began, tales of children being traumatized by the content were circulating for quite a while. One commonly cited example of this was from a mother, who wrote that her child was obsessively repeating the strange, distorted screeching sound she heard in many of these videos. This would be cited as evidence of the purpose of these depraved videos, to influence children. Surface level alone, these videos are already pretty gruesome, so they were predictably going to be traumatizing. But choice browsers of ElsaGate asserted that there could be something much more sinister at play. In fact, some were going as far to assert that these videos could be some form of mind control, or at least behavioral modification. One theory many found interesting was the use of colors potentially being a method of code. Supposedly, the use of color association is a theme commonly seen in many cases of cult abuse. As a result, some in the community have conflated this with the children's activity of naming colors in a lot of these videos, and claiming that it's all an attempt to trigger pre-programmed responses. The thing that doesn't make sense about this theory to me, however, is that you can't activate pre-programmed responses without programming them first, which they're seemingly not doing in these videos. Showing a young kid their favorite characters doing depraved things like torturing and peeing on one another could be an attempt by twisted adults to desensitize and normalize these things to kids en masse. There is one other explanation for these videos that is sinister in a completely different way, which is that this entire effort and overabundance of ElsaGate channels has been a result of a new gold rush of sorts. Motivated by easy profits, these channels spammed out any videos they thought would get them views, which somehow led to them making perverted content thinking it would get them higher audience retention rates. Those who explored this theory in depth claim that these may be automated channels, likening them to a virus. They speculate that bots may have been created to easily mass-produce content for the YouTube Kids app, with color themes, character choices, and plot points all being generated by an algorithm. One Redditor theorized that somewhere there's probably a bot going through popular videos and analyzing stuff like color schemes, characters, and keywords, looking for correlations between particular attributes and popularity. The algorithm then generates the magic formula for a popular video, which is then produced in places like Russia and Vietnam for cheap. At the end of the day, however, we cannot say anything conclusively because there isn't enough evidence to prove any overarching trends. Sure, some of these channels have been confronted and exposed like the Bradberries, but none of these shed light onto the more robotic and by effect manipulative accounts. It's been a year since this story first became big, and interest in the deeper aspects of it have largely died out, due to YouTube's guidelines becoming much more strict against copyrighted characters starring in such vile content. And because of that, to this very day, there are many questions that remain unanswered. Even if you reject the theory that this graphic content was made by perverts trying to manipulate children and think it was just businessmen wanting to make a quick buck, there's still one thing that doesn't add up. Why did they even choose to depict this disturbing content in the first place? Theoretically, they could have achieved the same business model without having to depict murder, cannibalization, abortion, and so on. Why deliberately choose to traumatize kids when you can just make normal cartoons that won't lead to needless scrutiny being directed your way? On top of this, why did it take so long for Google to react to this epidemic of revolting content on YouTube Kids? For a good year before the general public outrage, other content creators were calling out this dark shift in children's entertainment. But YouTube chose to do nothing about it, until companies started to pull ads. Why did they allow things to get so bad? Something just doesn't add up here. In conclusion, if there's one thing that can be learned from all this, is that no matter what the motive, this content could have disastrous consequences on a toddler's developing mind. And even though YouTube has cleaned up the app after backlash, I'd advise all parents to monitor what their children are watching online, because there's always a chance they'll find their way onto the dark side of YouTube.